It's honestly wild to think back to those first few days when the news broke. Most of us couldn't believe what was happening in Ukraine. Do you remember what stood out to you as the world was watching those initial moments unfold?
I still get chills thinking about Kyiv's empty streets on the morning of the invasion. People were posting videos from their balconies as sirens wailed. It felt surreal, almost like history was being rewritten in real time. The sheer speed of events was staggering.
Yeah, and I remember so many people expected the capital to fall quickly, but Ukrainians just pushed back with this resilience nobody saw coming. The world's reaction was intense too. Social media, protests, all that. Did you see any moments that especially captured that spirit of resistance?
One image that stuck with me was civilians filling sandbags together in Odessa, making Molotov cocktails in city squares. Even grandmothers were getting involved, which really drove home how determined ordinary Ukrainians were to defend their homes. It wasn't just the military, it was a nationwide effort.
That actually reminds me there were these stories about people blocking tanks with their bare hands, or standing in front of convoys. It was all over the news for a while. Let's dig into how that civilian resistance shaped the early phases of the conflict. So, beyond the army, regular folks really became a backbone of Ukraine's defense. What do you think made that kind of widespread involvement possible in the face of so much danger?
It seemed like there was this collective sense of purpose. People weren't just fighting for territory, they were protecting their families, their culture. And social media played a huge role. Everyone was watching, sharing, encouraging. That support gave people extra courage, I think.
That's a good point. There was this energy of we're all in this together. But of course it came at a cost. So many stories of families displaced, people losing their homes. Did you come across any personal accounts that really hit home for you?
One that really got to me was a father in Kharkiv who, after his apartment block was bombed, just grabbed his daughter's hand and ran for the border. He talked about making split-second decisions, leaving everything behind, not knowing if they'd ever come back. It's the human side that we can't forget.
Absolutely, it's easy to get lost in the headlines, but those individual stories make it real. Shifting gears a little, I've been curious how Ukraine's leadership managed to keep people unified through all this chaos. Let's talk about that next. With so much uncertainty and fear, President Zelensky's role became a focal point. What do you think it was about his leadership that resonated both inside and outside Ukraine?
It's wild he started as an actor and comedian, but when the war broke out, Zelensky refused to leave Kyiv. That single act, staying in the capital, sent a signal, we're not backing down. He became this rallying figure, not just for Ukrainians, but for people around the world watching from afar.
And he used social media masterfully, addressing not just his own people, but world leaders too, inviting them to stand with Ukraine. That constant communication seemed to keep morale up and pressure on international allies. Do you think his approach changed how leaders handle crises?
Definitely. The way he turned to live streams and direct appeals, bypassing traditional channels, made his message hard to ignore. It set a new standard for transparency and immediacy in leadership during conflict. But it also made him a target, which is something we shouldn't overlook.
That's a good point. The risks were enormous. Speaking of reaching the world, the response from the international community was massive, in ways both expected and surprising. Let's get into that in the next segment. It's amazing how quickly the world responded, sanctions, aid packages, even sending weapons. But I also noticed how different countries varied in their support. What struck you most about the global reaction?
What really surprised me was how quickly so many governments coordinated sanctions and sent humanitarian aid. At the same time, there were heated debates. Some countries hesitated, worried about escalating the conflict. The unity was inspiring, but the cracks showed up too.
Yeah, and the refugee situation became a whole crisis of its own, millions fleeing to neighboring countries almost overnight. I heard stories of Polish families welcoming strangers into their homes, and volunteers at train stations handing out food. The human generosity was phenomenal, even as systems struggled to keep up.
Right. And I think those individual acts of kindness cut through the politics. But there were real challenges managing logistics, making sure aid actually reached people in cities under siege. It was a race against time, and mistakes happened. Still, you saw this global determination to help.
That mix of hope and hardship seems to define so much of Ukraine's experience so far. Looking ahead, what do you see as the next big chapter in this conflict? Let's wrap up by thinking about where things might go from here. So after all these twists and turns, what do you think lies ahead for Ukraine? There's so much uncertainty, but also this sense of hope that keeps coming up in stories from the ground.
What encourages me is how Ukrainians have shown they can adapt and organize, even with everything stacked against them. But the rebuilding will be massive, economically, emotionally, physically. It's going to take years, probably a generation, to heal fully.
That's true. And I noticed there's a lot of talk now about Ukraine's future in Europe possibly joining the EU, or at least getting stronger support. But that also brings a whole new set of challenges, especially with the war not fully over yet.
Exactly, and I wonder how they'll balance recovery with ongoing defense. But if we've learned anything, it's that resilience and alliances really do make a difference. I think the world's watching how Ukraine writes its next chapter.
It's a story that's still unfolding, and I have a feeling we'll be talking about it for a long time. Thanks for sharing your insights today. It's been a powerful conversation.